Hi, I'm Ztarli, and in this video I'll show you how to draw some simple dragon heads using shapes. So we're going to use 3 different shapes to create 3 different dragon heads. We're going to use circular shapes for a soft round dragon face. Then we're going to use triangular shapes to make a sharp, vicious looking or angry looking dragon. And then we're going to use rectangular shapes to make a more stoic, sort of tough looking dragon. So we're going to start with our circular dragon or circular shapes. Now none of these shapes have to be perfect, and certainly mine are not, but we're going to start with this sort of egg shape, and I'm going to make it slightly fatter on one end than the other. So you'll see me fixing this a little bit just to make it a little bit fatter on one end. Then at the thinner end of the shape, I'm going to draw a circle that overlaps with the egg. This is the nose of the dragon, and the larger egg is, or the leg is, the sort of main part of that dragon head. And we draw another oval to the side, and this is the cheek of the dragon. Once we have these shapes, we can start making the outline of the head by just following the outline of the shapes we have created. So you'll see I come down the large egg shape and go around the nose to make a round nose shape, and the mouth comes across the center of that circular shape in the middle and across the egg shape, with the lower jaw following the rough shape of the 2 small shapes at the bottom. Now it may actually help to envision these as 3D objects rather than a flat 2D object. So you can put guidelines across them like this to sort of get in mind that it's a 3D shape and not just a flat object. This does help you make your pictures have better perspective and a more 3D feel. So now I've got this guideline here. I'm just going to divot the mouth up a little bit just to give it a sort of a cute little sort of shape to the mouth, kind of like a snake would have. And then again, following the bottom of these 2 shapes, and just sort of bridging the gap between the circle and the smaller egg shape. Now we've got this guideline here. We can just put our nostrils either side of the guideline, as that is the center of the nose. For the eyes, I'm just going to draw some oval shapes. The larger oval shape is actually the sort of brow, and then I draw a smaller shape inside and to the bottom, and that's where the eye is going to be placed. So you won't actually see the eye on the other side. That shape on the other side is just where the other brow is on the other side of the head. So that's the basic shape. Now we can add some extra pieces to our dragon to make it actually look like a dragon and not just a lizard or snake head. I'm going to add these sort of rounded horn shapes, which is kind of like the fin of a shark. It's basically how I describe these sort of horn shapes, shark fin. So you just do a sort of soft triangle coming off the back of the dragon's head. To create the neck, we're just going to follow the shape of the top of the head and continue the curve down, and then add another curve to match it from underneath the cheek, and then add a line from under the chin joining on to the line of the neck, just to give it the sort of throat part of the neck. And then we just erase away that line in between. Now, if you're using pen and paper, you may now want to erase away a lot of your guidelines so you have a cleaner image like I do here. And I'm just erasing away the lines that shouldn't be there so I can clearly see my picture. I'm now going to start adding some little details. I'm going to add an eyelid and eyelashes, and some little lines here and there to kind of give it a little bit more character. Now you may not be able to see the eye on the other side, but you would be able to see the eyelashes, and it does again make it a bit more 3-dimensional if you are giving eyelashes to your dragon. I'm now just going to add the continuation of the horn. So the horn, in this case, I don't want to come from the brow of the dragon, so it's going to be another part coming from the horn to just following the line of the eyebrow, and I'm going to do the same on the other side, and then continue the shape of the head in the middle there. They have a pretty good base for our dragon now. You can start adding as much or as little detail as you want. For sort of soft, round dragons, I find less is more, so I'm not going to add too much to this one. I'm not going to add any scale details or anything like that. I will give her a frill that runs from the middle of her head down her neck in a moment. But first I'm just going to give her a little slit for an eye and maybe a cute little tooth, a little snaggle tooth here. So for the frill, I'm just going to draw sharp pointed spines, and then in between the spines we're going to bridge the gap. And I find if you start at the very top on one and then sort of slope down, not quite in the middle, a little past the middle, it makes a more pleasing frill than if you just did it even each way. So you'll see the dip in my frills is not even on every, it sort of dips further along. It's not in the middle of the spines. And that's our first dragon done. We've got a cute little round-faced dragon. So next we're going to do the triangular shaped dragon. This can be a little bit more challenging, as you kind of have to think of very pointy pyramids like this. And then for the nose, I'm just going to do a skewed triangle. I'm not going to make this one 3D, it's just a guide for the nose. And I'm going to have very pointy horns, so we just add a couple more triangles to the top of the head. And I'll just pop some middle guidelines here on these objects as well, so we know where the middle of the object is. And for the mouth, we're going to have this one open, so I'm going to do a very thin triangle, and then I'm going to make it a very flat sort of pyramid to give the feel of a open mouth. So now we've got our basic shapes down. We're now going to start sketching around those shapes to give the dragon form. So I'm just going to start with tracing around these shapes. I give a little divot to give it an eyebrow, and we're going to just exaggerate the corners of this triangle to give it a nose. And I'm going to add some teeth that are sort of part of the head rather than being separate teeth. So they're sort of like coming from like a sort of bony plate, I guess. For these horns, I think I'm going to curve them up a little bit. So we're just going to follow most of the way around, but then curve it at the end. I'm going to give quite a pointy cheek, and we're following the shape of that bottom triangle. And maybe we'll give it a pointy chin. And I'm just going to add some more teeth coming from the bottom of that triangle as well. I'm going to have a nice pointy tongue sliding out of this mouth. And I'm just going to draw a circle for the eye. And then within that circle, we're going to draw very narrow eyes. And we use that circle as a guide for where the actual eye is inside of the eye socket. And I didn't like that nose, so I'm just changing it a little bit, just pointing it down a bit more rather than having it come straight out. That circle is also a good guide of where to put the eyelids. So to make it a little bit more sort of cranky looking, I'm going to put the bottom and the top eyelid in. It kind of looks like it's squinting a bit more. It's a bit more of an angry dragon. I'm going to give it some very pointy spines. For the neck, we're just going to go straight down, and again joining the neck to the chin with one line across. Let's give big old triangular spikes. Now I'm going to add some small details to this. So I'm going to give it some smoke coming from its nose, and I'm just going to add some triangular scales here just for fun. And then I'm going to do some, I guess you could call them, they're triangles without the bottoms. So just sort of following the shape of the horns and then following the shape down the top of the head. So we've got some plate scales here, just following the shape of the head. We'll do the same down the back of the dragon. We'll just give some little ones here. I don't want to give it too much detail. But that'll probably do. So there's our triangular shaped dragon. Now I'm going to go super simple with our chunky rectangular dragon. I'm going to use 2 rectangles, a bit fatter on one end than the other. And then I'm going to add another smaller rectangle for the cheek. And that's going to be it. So I'm going to draw this dragon directly from the side. So just following roughly a shape, give a little divot for that brow and a little divot for where the mouth would be. And there's a circle for where the eye would be. I was thinking about giving it a horn, but I thought it looked just like a rhinoceros. So we won't put the horn on this drawing. Following that center line for the mouth. And for the eyes, this is a little too round, so I'm actually going to go with a more rectangular eye shape, so like a rhombus. And I'm going to give it the square pupils just for giggles. Add a little nose, and then I'm going to give it sort of these, I call these crystal shapes, but they are just sort of weird rectangle shapes coming from the back of the head. Now I've run out of space, so I'm just going to shift this to the side so that I actually have enough space for its neck. And I'm just going to do some straight lines down the back and from the cheek down, and I don't think he needs much joining from the chin. I think that's enough for this dragon. Adding some more lines following the circle shape I did for the eyes, so he looks a bit cranky, and doing some sort of, they're kind of like triangular spikes, but I've cut the tips off, and give him some some square scales, and just putting some lines across the top of his head, so it looks like he has plate on his head, and just some pointed rectangles. I don't know what they're really called. Pointed rectangles. They look like houses along the bottom for his belly scales, and we'll give him some on the head underneath his mouth as well. I'll just get rid of this scale. So we just got some sort of tapering off near the end. And there we go. He's done as well. That's all 3 dragons done. I hope you found this helpful. If you did follow along and draw your own dragons, I'd love to see them. I do have a Discord and a DeviantArt, as well as Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, and an Instagram. So if you do want to share them with me, just message me on one of those platforms. I'd love to see them. Which one of these was your favorite? I personally like the pointy dragon the best. Well, thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and I have a Patreon if you'd like to support me. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Bye!